Hey guys, today we want to talk about vintage drums. We have a couple of different sets from different eras, from the 40s to the 70s here. We got some Slingerland Radio Kings, Swingstar, which later became Tama, a Vista Lite, Sonor Champion, another Slingerland, and a Ludwig. All the drums are recorded with the same mics and with the same snare. A snare we all know and love, the Ludwig Supraphonic, and you'll find all the exact details about the drums and the mics in the description of the video. Okay, let's talk about Slingerland Radio King drums. Slingerland was formed by members of the Slingerland family in 1923. The first catalog was released in 1928, featuring tube-lock snare drums and bass drums in various finishes. The Radio King line of drums first appeared in 1936. These drums had the distinctive Slingerland Radio King stamped or engraved in the metal hoops. The King of Swing, Gene Krupa, became Slingerland's first and most famous endorser. Krupa is responsible for the introduction of the fully tunable tom-toms. Prior to 1936, tom-toms could only be tuned from the top, thus limiting the tuning range. He encouraged Slingerland to add a tunable bottom head. The set of drums right here is a cloud badge set in white marine pearl. It's in 24, 13 and 16 inches. The kit has beaver tail lugs and single flanged hoops on 3-ply mahogany poplar mahogany shells with maple reinforcement rings. The old mahogany wood gives the drums a very warm tone. The tom shells are slightly oversized, that's why I'm using Aquarian American vintage heads on it to get them the most flexibility in tone. Slingerland completely changed the look of their drums in 1955 with the introduction of the Sound King hardware. The futuristic style gave the Sound King drums a unique and more modern appearance. The new hardware featured stick saver brass hoops which are flanged towards the inside of the drum. At first the shell construction was just like the Radio Kings, but it later changed to 3-ply maple poplar maple shells, again with reinforcement rings. These drums sound a bit brighter and more focused than the Radio Kings. The kit right here is in 22, 13 and 16 inches and black diamond pearl finish. Those drums are great for recording because the shells are very flexible in tonality. I use coated ambassadors on toms and a coated Power Stroke 3 on the bass drum. Okay, let's go on to Ludwig drums. The Ludwig Drum Company was established in 1909 by William F. and Theobald Ludwig. William and his brother, Theobald, opened a drum shop in Chicago called Ludwig & Ludwig. By 1923, the factory was the largest drum manufacturer in the world, employing 240 workers. During the 50s, it was called WFL, and the shells were similar to the mahogany shells of the Radio Kings. Later, they switched to maple poplar maple shells with reinforcement rings, but still with a very rounded bearing edge. Those drums were at the forefront of rock and roll music and were played by our heroes Ringo Starr, John Bonham or Alex Van Halen. Vintage Ludwig drums are a wonderfully sounding instrument and they quickly became the standard for drums in recording studios. Today we have a kit in 22, 16 and 13 inches and again with Remo ambassadors on it. This particular set is from 1967 with white interior but still the mahogany poplar mahogany shell. Okay, let's go on to Ludwig Vista Lite drums, the acrylic drums. Those drums were produced by Ludwig and introduced in 1972 and were made famous by John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Vistalites generally are substantively louder than traditional drums with fewer overtones. The sound can be described as dry but punchy and projecting. This clear set right here is in 22, 13 and 16 with Remo black dot heads on it to give it the classic Vistalite sound. So let's hear it. So let's talk about imported drums. Especially after the Beatles went Ed Sullivan and the British invasion started, parents were looking for affordable student drum sets. The major US companies, Ludwig, Gretsch, Slingerland, Rogers and Camco, were building tons of drums, while Japanese companies were importing cheaper versions of those classic drums. A few companies in Asia manufactured the drums, which were imported under a number of different brand names. US Mercury, Stewart, Apollo, Majestic are just a few names on a sheer endless list. The quality of some of those kits is pretty bad, but some are actually sounding pretty good. You can find a lot of interesting finishes like this one in Fantasia Pearl. Later, all those different brand names disappeared, the quality of the drums improved, and companies like Tama, Pearl and Yamaha stayed in business. The kit I'm going to play is a Swingstar kit, a company that eventually became Tama. It's in 2012-14 with very thin shells made of Luan wood, the Philippine version of mahogany. Again, this is equipped with Remo ambassadors to give it a clear sound. This video wouldn't be complete if we wouldn't talk about German drums. Johannes Link, the founder of Sonor, was born in 1848 in a small Bavarian village. He began his career as a trained wood turner and leather tanner in Weissenfels. In 1875, he built a factory with simple military drums. His business grew over the years and by 1900 it employed more than 50 craftsmen in the factory. Around 1925, celebrating already its 50th anniversary, Sonor had 145 employees and was one of the largest businesses of its kind. After the Second World War, a new successful era in the Sonor story began. In the 50s and 60s, the drums were getting better and better, reaching a quality similar to the great American drums. Jazz stars like Kenny Clarke, Connie Kay, or Lionel Hampton played Sonor drums at that time, and the famous teardrop, champion, swinger and phonic lines of instruments were established. Here we have a champion set in 22, 12 and 16 with 6-ply bead shells with rounded bearing edges. Unfortunately, this isn't the original finish. The whole drum set was repaired and newly provided with a birch grain. So let's hear it. Before we end, let's hear all the drums side by side again. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed all the madness we did today. I had a lot of fun. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. We got a lot of interesting stuff coming up at our channel. And yeah, see you soon.